Movies of 1999.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to episode 49 of the Movies of 1999, a podcast where we watch a movie from 1999 each week as selected by a bingo machine. My name is Jason Hutchins.
And I'm Craig Talbot.
And in this week's episode, we are going to be talking about the movie Boys Don't Cry, which was paired with The Adventures of Sebastian Cole. Now, don't forget to stick around to the end of this episode where we'll be crossing live to this week's movie night for the spinning of the bingo machine, and we'll find out which of the remaining 4 balls comes out, which will tell us which 2 movies we'll be talking about on next week's show. So, Craig, I just recently watched a movie called Civil War. Have you heard of this movie?
I've heard of the movie, yeah.
It's on Prime. I just thought it was interesting because last week we saw The Virgin Suicides with Kirsten Dunst. Right. She plays a war photographer in this movie. It's like a modern-day civil war where Texas and California unite against the American government.
Right.
Because the president is some kind of wannabe, dictator or something.
Can't imagine that happening in America. No.
But it's quite interesting because she's in that movie with her husband, who is Jesse Plemons, who we saw in Varsity Blues. So she was 16 in The Virgin Suicides and he was 11, but now the husband and wife acting together in a 2024 movie. But it's really, I would highly recommend it. It's an Alex Garland movie. It's most enjoyable.
I've heard of it. I've seen it advertised on Prime.
Yeah, it's worth watching. It had 3 moments that were just completely shocking to me. Anyway, so let's get back to 25 years ago. Why do you think I put the movie Boys Don't Cry on my A-list?
It's critically acclaimed. It got a 91% score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And it's it's listed as one of the 25 movies that are not entertaining, but because it's quite a serious movie. Obviously, got a serious point to it. It was a passion project for the director, writer,
and of course, Hilary Swank won the Oscar for it for Best Actress.
Globe.
Yeah. So I thought this 25 Most Dangerous Movies list was interesting because it kind of summarizes what we've discussed with some of these sorts of challenging movies in the past. Basically, movies about which you could say that's not entertainment, but they are basically reflecting something about life and so forth. And so, yeah, I think this movie had to be on the A list for all of those reasons. Why do you think it was paired with The Adventures of Sebastian Cole?
Well, they both share a transgender element to them.
That's right.
I'm going to have to be honest here and say that I completely failed to get hold of this movie. I couldn't find a way of accessing it all.
I should have messaged you. I should have messaged you because the only place I could find The Adventures of Sebastian Cole, which unfortunately seems to have sunk without a trace. But it is on YouTube. Someone has put it up on YouTube.
Oh, I couldn't find it on YouTube, and I completely failed at downloading it. I completely failed at finding anywhere that you could buy it or rent it.
I'll send you the YouTube link because I thought it was an interesting movie. But another interesting link between the 2 movies is Dairy Whip, cans of whipped cream, because in both of these movies, characters get high by inhaling the gas from, I'm doing the balloon thing again. I've got to turn that off. I don't know what gesture I did to get balloons, but there you go. But in both of these movies, characters get high by inhaling the gas from cans of dairy.
Cans of whipped cream. Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but both of these movies are so weird that they have that connection as well. But yeah, I'll need to talk about The Adventures of Sebastian Cole when we get around to that. But for now, let's go to our pal ChatGPT with its synopsis of Boys Don't Cry.
In Boys Don't Cry, Hilary Swank delivers a powerful Oscar-winning performance as Brandon Teena, a transgender man navigating life, love, and identity in rural Nebraska. The film, directed by Kimberly Pierce, is a raw and heart-wrenching exploration of acceptance and violence, chronicling Brandon's romantic relationship with Lana, portrayed by Chloe Sevigny in an equally riveting performance. As Brandon's secret is revealed, the story takes a tragic turn, exposing the devastating consequences of prejudice. Both Swank and Sevigny bring humanity and depth to their roles, making this film a deeply impactful and unforgettable experience.
And Craig, what did you think of this one?
It's a bit of a harrowing watch, isn't it?
It is.
Especially at the end. The rest of the movie, it's pretty hard to believe that it's Hilary Swank, to be honest, for a lot of the movie.
She is amazing in this.
Yeah, no, to be honest, the Oscar is well deserved. It's quite a remarkable performance from her. Apparently, even her husband struggled to recognise her when they first made her up as a boy and had a haircut and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
and in fact,
she even turned up to the audition dressed that way, apparently.
Yeah, but I don't think she'd had a haircut at that point. But
right.
Yes, yeah. But once they cut her hair and stuff, even her own husband didn't recognise her. And apparently her neighbours for the entire period of the filming thought it was a boy staying with like her brother or
coming
something.
To visit,
Yeah, something like that. So, so she won an Oscar for Best Actress in Leading Role. Chloe Sevigny, I think is the name. Yeah, she was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. Hilary Swank also won the Golden Globe, as I think I mentioned. And again, Chloe was nominated for a Golden Globe as Best Actress in a Supporting Role. In 2019, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress because it was culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So there you go. So that probably says something about it.
Yeah, it really shone a light on this issue, which I think at that, 25 years ago, it wasn't sort of on people's radars as much as it is these days. And I think this movie probably had a big role to play in sort of turning around people's
certainly, I think for the LGBTQA community, I think it was a significant film for them. And unfortunately, the issue of trans bashing or trans,
Well, yeah, this
killings,
is just a hate crime. Pure
hate crimes is still an issue even today, though I think there's legislation now in the US too.
Did you go into it knowing that it was a true story? Because apparently at the time people didn't know that it was a true story. It was only at the end of the movie that it dawned on the audience that it was based on real life events.
Oh, okay. No, I did very little research before watching the movie, so I just watched it as it was.
Right, because they don't say up front that this is based on a true story or anything like that.
No, not until the end, I believe. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, so it was certainly, certainly at the end, by the end of the movie, I was getting a bit frustrated with some of the characters and their reactions to things and the way they were behaving. But apparently...
It doesn't sugarcoat anything, does it? And Brandon, that's Hilary Swank's character, he is, he's not a saint or anything like that. Just the way that he behaves is fairly self-destructive kind of existence.
Yes.
So they don't sort of sugarcoat any of that as well. So they don't make him out to be a hero or anything. He's just a regular person trying to live his life or whatever.
Yeah.
But up against these haters that, ultimately kill him.
So apparently this was a bit of a passion project for Kimberly Peirce.
And the director,
She took 4 years to make this movie. So she'd actually done a short film version of this movie and then subsequently did sorry.
Yeah, take a drink, man. So I think she'd made a documentary or something about the case and then turned it into the movie. But I was reading that because Hilary Swank and the director got a bit of flack for not casting a transgender man in the role, which I think these days would be even more of an issue for this kind of role.
Apparently not for lack of trying, though.
But she tried for 3 years to find somebody and just could not find an actor.
Couldn't find somebody. And Hilary Swank was the first one to really, convince. And Hilary Swank was very unknown at the time. She wasn't known at all.
Right.
So Kimberly Peirce decided to cast her because she was unknown and it felt right. And to be honest, I can't see that she did. Like, I can't see that you could criticize the way she played the role or what she did.
No.
And like, I can't, like, look, I can understand that criticism, but I think in this case, that criticism, she was a woman playing a man, in a sense, which is exactly what which is exactly what the Brandon in real life was doing. So
Brandon Teena or Teena Brandon.
Or Teena Brandon, whichever way you want to put it. Yeah. So, like, okay, I think people get a little bit precious about this stuff. At the end of the day, the movie
delivered its message, didn't it? Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are quite angry about the movie. The Brandon's parents, obviously not very supportive of the movie. Even the real Lana has disputed the accuracy of the movie quite heavily.
Yeah. We talked about this before. These movies aren't documentaries. They're based on real life events, and there is some artistic license to turn it into something that you can watch in 90 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, so Lana Tisdale did declare her dislike for the film. She said that Brandon never proposed to her, and that when she discovered that Brandon was transgender, she ended the relationship. She didn't like the way she was portrayed in the film, and she even called it the second murder of Brandon Teena. And she actually sued the film's producers, claiming the film depicted her as lazy white trash, etc., etc.
It did kind of.
Yeah, well, it did. So she was pretty unhappy. And also Sarah Nissen, who's the cousin of the murderer, Marvin Nissen, said that there was nothing about it that was right, and that Leslie Tisdale, Lana's sister, called the film a lie of a movie. So there's quite a fair bit of criticism for the people who were actually involved in the real-life events. Yeah. Whether that's reasonable or not, I don't know, but that's...
I don't think any of that changes the truth of what actually transpired, which is...
Or what was transpired in the movie anyway, or what the story the movie was trying to tell. To be fair, Kimberly Peirce did try and interview pretty much everybody who was involved with the real-life events, but there were some people who refused to speak to her, so, she would have had to take some artistic license, I guess.
Yeah.
It was made on a budget of $2 million, took a box office of $20 million.
Wow.
Hilary Swank was paid all of $3,000 for the movie.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
$3,000, and she won Best Actress at the Oscars.
And she put in like enormous amounts of work to be the character. So it does seem rather unfair, considering she spent her entire life for a month living as a man, wrapping her chest and doing all of that sort of stuff.
And apparently the condition of her doing that was that she had to ask girls out on dates as well.
Oh, right.
So that's, the director told her that, if you're going to get that deep into your role, then you have to fully embrace it, kind of thing. So
many actresses were asked to play the leading role, but a lot of them rejected it due to the stigma associated with the role, or felt stigma. And a lot of the actresses that were actually involved in the film eventually had actually originally auditioned for the role of Brandon. Hilary Swank found it really, really challenging to do a lot of the aspects of the role, particularly the rape scenes and all that kind of stuff. So she actually had her husband on set for support. I think these days they actually specifically have support people who are specifically assigned for these kinds of scenes.
That's right.
To make sure that the actors and actresses are well looked after, whereas that wasn't the case 25 years ago. So, yes, that's something that's changed over that time. Yeah, the title of the film is taken from a song by The Cure, which is in the background at one point in the movie. I'm a huge fan of The Cure, so I could talk about that for ages.
Oh, yeah, the Cure are fantastic. Yeah.
I'm a massive Cure fan, so I put them up there with Nirvana in my panoply of things I love. So anyway, they're both very different bands, but
and Silverchair, just to make the triad. There you go, the triad.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Did you see The
Cure? Probably not quite as much as
that's what I would think.
The Cure and Nirvana, but yes. So we all know your obsession with one particular band, and
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And,
I go pretty deep with that.
And as your friends, we have often considered an intervention in that regard, but I think it's too late at this point.
Did you see The Cure when they came to Perth?
And it appears your children and your wife encourage you now, so I don't know.
Yeah, and they've become fans themselves. You know, it was inevitable.
So it's just a total loss at this point. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. Yeah, so apparently after Hilary Swank's Oscar reception speech, Joanne Brandon, who I'm assuming is her mother, took offence at Swank for thanking Brandon Teena and referring to him as a man. She should not stand up there and thank my child. I get tired of people taking credit for what they don't know. But, look, who knows? I don't know what the relationship... There's very little in the movie about what the relationship Brandon... with his actual family. Yeah, don't really know why she was on the road.
He's abandoned his family by that point, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
But I read that his mother recanted that more recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's good to know. Anyway, I'm not sure. I don't have a source for that, but I did read it during the week that, she said that at the time back in '99, and now she's sort of changed her opinion about it.
The world has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, look.
And in no small part due to movies such as this one, I think. It sort of put it into the
other things that have happened. Yeah.
Because how can you watch this and not have sympathy for what Brandon went through? Yeah.
Though, as
no one deserves that.
There is also the flip side that Brandon was pretty self-destructive. Like, there were choices that could have been made that could have saved her life, essentially, his life.
Yeah. Put himself in danger. Totally. But I like that they didn't hold back. They didn't try and portray him as a saint or anything like that.
No.
You know, he's still the victim, but partly through the choices that he made.
Yeah. I mean, look, it would have been a tough thing to deal with at that time. It looks like he was getting help, though, but just wasn't able to afford it due to the stupid American medical system.
Oh, my goodness. That was in the news this week as well, with the insurance, the head of the health insurance company being assassinated.
It's just ridiculous. The American health system has the capacity to be one of the best health systems in the world, but a lot of its people can't access it, and so therefore live their lives in pain, and it's just ridiculous. Like in Australia, we are extremely fortunate. Our health system is not perfect, but at least you can access it and get help. So, So, I mean, anyway. The nitrous oxide thing is a fairly well-known thing. There's also a thing called, in Australia, we call them nangs. They're the little...
there's little capsules that you see. There's little canisters,
Yeah, well, we used to sell them at a place that I worked, and we were forever losing them. We had to hide them, in fact, and because they were sold. But they mysteriously disappeared on on a regular basis.
Yeah, so, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So, they're fairly it's a bit of a thing, but there's not a lot of factoids to this. Peter Sarsgaard, who played the main male character,
he was very good actually.
Yes, and a brave role in a sense, because it's not a nice role.
No, he's prone to violent outbursts and
apparently
obviously a bit of a redneck. Yeah.
Apparently, the other chap, his sort of friend, who was also involved in the final scenes.
Yeah.
He actually was in tears after shooting those scenes. He found it really, very confronting. So I can imagine. So yeah. Apparently, Hilary Swank was born in 1974. The real Brandon Teena was born in 1972. Peter Skarsgård was born in 1971, the same year as the real John Lotter, who
still on death row.
He's still on death row. I don't know if he's still on death row. I don't know. And there's a lot of parallels in terms of birth years and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so they cast the movie well.
Yeah. Well, apparently Hilary Swank pretended she was 21 when she was actually 22 or something when they were doing the movie.
Yep. Still on death row as far as Wikipedia is concerned.
In Australia, this film was given an adult 18 plus rating, but there were scenes included in the Australian version that had actually been cut from the American version.
Oh, is that so?
The rape scenes and stuff were more detailed in the Australian versions.
Right, because that was the original cut and they had to pare it down because of the audience reaction.
The American rating system, yeah.
They originally got NC-17, which would have meant that nobody would have seen the movie.
Yeah. So, but in Australia, it was 18 plus. So, and also in a lot of other countries as well, except for some weird reason, Japan, which rated it PG-12, which is weird. But anyway, Japan, I guess. Yeah, apparently Diane Keaton was originally slated to direct this movie, and
oh, really?
And Drew Barrymore was going to be in the lead, but then that didn't happen.
As Brandon.
Yes.
That would have been a very different movie, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I can't imagine Drew Barrymore as a... Anyway, I suppose, I don't know. Look, I think it would have been a challenging movie for anybody. Director Kimberly Peirce said that she used the same shots in the opening roller rink scene that were used in The Wizard of Oz from 1939.
I was wondering about that, because it does stand out when you watch the movie when they enter the roller rink, that the camera swirls around a bit. And I'm like, what? It's out of character compared to the rest of the movie. I didn't know it was from Wizard of Oz. Yeah, it was from The Wizard of Oz. Apparently when Dorothy first leaves the house and enters the land of Oz, she sort of did this same. I guess it's the camera movements and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Apparently many of the night shots of the road were filmed by Kimberly Peirce and cinematographer Jim Donahoe. So when the filming would stop for the day, they used to just drive off and collect the material to do the road shots. There's quite a lot of these sort of high speed driving around shots. Yeah. So interesting. The working title was apparently Take It Like a Man. I think this title is a better title. It's a difficult movie to watch. It reminded me a little bit of American X. Is that the American History X? Yeah,
American History X. Yes, sorry, that one.
Yeah, we've watched a few of them this year. Where they're not entertaining movies, but they're sort of
It just reminded me of that
message.
Yeah, where it was more of a I guess we could call it a message movie rather than a entertaining movie. But
So a movie that's worth seeing, I think, but perhaps not one that you come away from feeling very good about the world or anything.
No, especially the ending scenes are very upsetting. Yeah. I certainly found them emotionally quite upsetting.
Yeah, definitely.
I've dealt subsequently on a number of occasions. In fact, we have at our school at the moment kids who are unsure about their identities, and that sort of thing. And it's a fairly, I wouldn't say regular occurrence, but it's a fairly common thing to have to do with.
I think kids these days feel safer about expressing that part of themselves.
It's just there are also challenges about how early and all that. Anyway, all of that sort of stuff. There's some debate about that.
We're still figuring these things out, and as a society,
most definitely.
So and I did watch the Oscar acceptance speech. So it was Roberto Benigni that presented the Oscar, and it's worth seeing because Hilary Swank does give a little speech about, how far have we come that we can now make a movie about this topic and that sort of thing. So it was interesting that in 1999 it was they were sort of crossing this bridge where this was becoming more of a known thing, I guess. Stories like Brandon's, So her speech is really good, and you can find that on YouTube. But right now, I can hear the approaching sounds of this week's
All right, welcome to the intermission, everyone. And this week is time for some news. This is the news of October and November and December. So our last news items for the year. And there's some interesting ones in here. Jason always loves this particular session.
I do like it, as long as it's interesting.
Considering you made me do it. So anyway, there are some few. So starting with October, there was a railway crash in London called the Ladbroke Grove Rail Crash, which killed 31 people.
Jeez.
Fairly unusual for the English railway system. Pervez Musharraf took control of Pakistan in a coup. He was a general and he took over took over Pakistan. The 6 billionth human being was born, according to the UN, on the October the 12th of 1999. I think we're coming up on the 8th billionth at this point.
Are we?
I
thought it was higher than that.
Oh, I could be wrong.
No, you're right. It's 8.2.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. The United States Senate rejected the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, which is a bit of an odd one, but I'm not sure if that got resolved in the end. The House of Lords in Britain ended the right of hereditary peers, like our friend Lord Goring from a few weeks ago, to vote. So they no longer have the right to vote. I think they're still allowed to sit in the Parliament, but they don't vote.
Well, they must have seen the movie then. And they decided we can't be having any of that.
Okay. The Prime Minister and 7 members of Parliament in Armenia were killed by gunmen on October the 27th. Sadly, 10,000 people in India were killed in a cyclone. Jesse Martin, this is an interesting one. I don't know if you remember Jesse Martin. I'm pretty sure he was like this young 17-year-old lad, or maybe I'm thinking of the West Australian chap. Anyway, he returned to Melbourne after spending 11 months at sea. He circumnavigated the world.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm pretty sure, he was quite an interesting
whole thing for a while, these 17-year-olds going around the world in a yacht.
In a boat. Yeah, it was sort of a thing. I think it's sort of been done to death now. 217 people were killed when an Egypt air flight crashed off the coast of Nantucket and on October the 31st. And Mika Hakkinen claims his second Formula One World Championship. I thought you'd love that one.
Yeah, well, that's in your ballpark, isn't it?
Yeah, that is in my ballpark. On November the 6th, Australia voted to retain the British monarch as their head of state in a referendum. I think I actually voted in that. Well, we would have voted in that referendum, wouldn't we?
We would have, yes.
I'm pretty sure I voted the other way, but
Me too.
Anyway, can't stop people from voting for the Queen, I guess. I think if we had that vote today, it might be different. But
I think so.
Yeah. There's a film that debuts on November the 8th, but it's a James Bond one, so I don't know.
Oh, it's one we haven't seen yet. There aren't too many that we haven't seen yet.
Right. The People's Republic of China launched the first Shenzhou spacecraft, and they have subsequently gone on to be quite successful at launching things, sometimes into their own people's towns and cities and whatever. But anyway, moving on. I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with this one because this was a bit of a strange story, but it's actually quite interesting. Elian Gonzalez departed Cuba with his mother, and they were sighted off the coast of Florida on the November the 21st and 22nd. Now you'll say to yourself, who is Elian Gonzalez? Well, in America, this is quite a big thing. So what happened was Elian Gonzalez was a child at this time, and he left Cuba with his mother, but his father and the rest of his family stayed behind in Cuba because there was a bit of a dispute over custody and all these sorts of things. Sadly, his mother was killed in the journey, and Elian and only two of the other passengers survived. He managed to survive by grabbing an inner tube and hanging onto it.
Oh, they capsized or something, did they?
They capsized or something like that. That's right, as these things often do. And so most of the passengers drowned. So he was turned over to the US Coast Guard, and then he was allowed to stay in the US, and he was placed with his great uncle, Lazaro Gonzalez, in Miami. And his great uncle wanted Elian to remain in America. However, his father wanted him to come back to Cuba. And US-Cuban relations being what they still are, a bit of a mess, this led to a long, high-profile and protracted custody battle where eventually in 2000, Elian was reunited with his father and still lives in Cuba to this day. He's an engineer, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, it was a big, long story. I thought it was interesting because he and I were born on the same day, which was yesterday.
I forgot to say happy birthday for Thursday, was it? Or?
Yesterday, but anyway,
Friday?
Thanks, Jason.
Well, happy birthday.
Thanks. We've only been friends for 30-odd years or whatever, hey, who cares? It's all right. David forgot as well.
So that was a long-winded way of paying out on me for not saying happy birthday. So if all of my friends are listening
to this podcast, thanks for not remembering my birthday. I love you all.
Okay, so
I make an effort to remember yours, but you guys always forget mine. So
listeners, just remember this time next year on the 6th of December, make sure to send a message to Craig and make him feel loved.
Yes, there are a number of listeners who should feel a little bit embarrassed just at the moment. Anyway.
Well done.
Including the one sitting across from me on the microphone over there. Because I remember his birthday with monotonous regularity. Anyway, never mind.
You get Dave and I mixed up. You must admit.
I do, but at least I try. I do try. Okay, British era. Oh, actually, November is pretty interesting. I won't bother about the Los Angeles Lakers because you'll just fall asleep on me. Sadly, there was another flight that crashed on the way to Mexico City. Turkey was hit by a fairly big earthquake on November the 12th. The Duce, I think, earthquake was a pretty massive one. Jack Welch was named Manager of the Century. He was the CEO of General Electric. I remember him being a very big thing at the time, as I was in sort of the business world at that time. Yeah. Helen Clark became the first female Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Oh, right.
And she was Prime Minister for quite some time.
Last century, people.
Yeah, I know. Well, we've had a Prime Minister, but America can't do it yet.
Yeah.
America, that's America, So that's November. In Australia, the Reserve Bank announces an interest rate of 0.25%, which was the first time since 1994. This is the start of sadly, that whole bubble that we're still living with today, 25 years later. The interest rate, the whole obsession with interest rates and all that kind of stuff that we still suffer from in Australia. As mentioned, there was the referendum. Also in Australia, this is the start of the whole beating up on the poor old refugees who come to Australia by boat. That was the thing for quite some time and still a bit of a thing, really. People seeking asylum from other places. So, the government thought it was a good idea of the time, thought it was a good idea to beat up on the poor old illegal immigrants and, all of that kind of stuff. Sadly, political power in Northern Ireland is devolved to the Northern Ireland Executive, which sort of began a process of things calming down around that time in Northern Ireland finally. In December, that was December the 2nd, NASA lost radio contact with the Mars polar lander, and I don't think they ever recovered it, unfortunately. That was a big thing at the time. Thousands of people died in Venezuela after flash flooding, and there was a resolution in the United Nations General Assembly where they designated the 25th of November as the International Day, ironic given our previous topic, to eliminate violence against women.
Okay.
Portugal returned Macau to China on the December the 20th, which is a little bit later than Hong Kong was returned because that was in 1997. Pope John Paul II did a bunch of stuff, opening things.
Which and then closing them again? Doors, you mean?
I don't know.
Started opening doors.
Says he opened St. Peter's Holy Door and then
he wasn't.
I'm assuming that he had to close it afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what the significance of those were, and I'm a Catholic, so I'm just going to leave that one. 100 people were killed in France. on the 26th of December. Shut up.
It's like you do well with these factoids, like poop, open store, stop the presses.
This one, I don't know quite how we should take this one, but Vladimir Putin became the acting president of Russia after the resignation of Boris Yeltsin, and 25 years later, he's still there.
Yep.
Anyway. Yeah. There was an Olympic scandal this year as well. You'll be surprised to hear. They expelled 6 members as a result of an inquiry into corruption. It was the first time in 105 years, though probably not before time, because they'd all been given cash and gifts and all of this sort of stuff. It was in relation to the bidding process for the 2002 Winter Olympics, and it supposedly triggered a process of reform where the bidding process was completely overhauled. I'm pretty sure it's still pretty corrupt, but, There was a bunch of stuff about the Bathurst 500 and 1000 because there was a bit of a fight going on at the time between 2 different camps of Australian racing cup thingo. So anyway, I knew you'd be excited by that. And I knew you'd be excited also to know that the South Sydney Rabbitohs there was a big fight, and our mate, and this is film related because our mate from...
Russell Crowe must be.
Russell Crowe and quite a number of other Australian high celebrities put a lot of work in to get the South Sydney Rabbitohs back and as successful as a team. But in 2000, they were looking like they were going to get kicked out of the competition completely. A horse called Rogan Josh won the Melbourne Cup back when the Melbourne Cup...
Rogan Josh from Perth, right? So
yeah, back when the Melbourne Cup actually mattered to people.
We used to travel down to Margaret River or something, and there was, you could see Rogan Josh down there, I'm pretty sure. Sort of stabled down there, yeah.
Yep, you could well be right. 1999 was a year when Australia won the Rugby World Cup, the Cricket World Cup, and the Netball World Cup, all within that year. So that was sort of a high point. Kind of a high point for Australia, yes.
Like the ball trifecta.
And so we won the 1999 Rugby World Cup, and I don't think we've really been the same team since. They've been pretty rubbish since then. So, yeah. Anyway, yes, and there's some more stuff about Bathurst, but I won't submit you to it. You can look it up, listeners, if you wish. But anyway, that's the news of October, November, and December for 1999.
There you go, pope opening doors and
yeah, all that sort of stuff.
Hey,
the 6th billionth person was born. That was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So, that's the end of this week's intermission.
There we go. Yes.
No more news from 99.
No more news. That's it. We've run out of news.
Finished the years. Let's go over to ChatGPT now for its synopsis of The Adventures of Sebastian Cole.
The Adventures of Sebastian Cole is a poignant coming-of-age story about a teenage boy, played by Adrien Grenier, who must navigate a tumultuous family dynamic when his stepfather Hank transitions to Henrietta, portrayed with warmth and sensitivity by Clark Gregg. Set against the backdrop of small-town life, the film explores themes of identity, acceptance, and the search for meaning, echoing the struggles of belonging seen in Boys Don't Cry. While lighter in tone, this film complements its predecessor by highlighting the complexities of gender identity through a lens of familial relationships, offering a heartfelt and nuanced perspective.
And I would normally say, Craig, what did you think of this movie? But you haven't watched this movie.
No, well, I honestly tried really hard and I couldn't find a way to watch it, so I apologise.
Well, it is on YouTube, and I will sort of give you the link to the one that I watched if you wanted to watch it in retrospect, just to tick it off your list.
I'll give it a go.
It's kind of unfortunate that this movie sunk without a trace because I really enjoyed it. I was surprised. It reminded me a lot of Napoleon Dynamite in a way. So there's like this slacker high school student like in the early 80s. So it's got kind of got that vibe similar to what the Virgin Suicides had. He has a hairstyle a little bit similar to Toe Cutter from Mad Max. He's got this big curly black hair with like blonde highlights in the front. And there's a sequence in the movie where he, in order to justify something at his school, because again, it's a bit of a high school movie.
Yeah.
He has to prove that he knows karate because he's been telling, he said he doesn't need to join the football team because he's doing a sport in his after school hours, which is learning karate, which of course he never does.
Right.
So he has to go and prove to the gym teachers that he knows his karate. So there's a whole sequence where he's dressed up in a karate uniform in front of
I see it in the trailer.
Three gym teachers, and he has to pretend that he knows karate. And that reminded me a lot of the dancing sequence from Napoleon Dynamite. It's quite funny. But no, this movie I thought was pretty interesting. It's not something that, I was here expecting you to go through a big list of factoids, and you haven't watched any of it, Craig. So, what can you talk about?
Well, it's directed by Todd Williams and written by Todd Williams. It took only $100,000 at the box office.
Well, there you go.
I think it's one of the lowest.
Sunk without a trace.
Eye of the year. It was nominated for 4 awards. On Rotten Tomatoes, it currently has a rating of 43% and 70% user score, or popcorn meter, or whatever the heck they call it. About the only person who seems to really have liked it was Roger Ebert. He gave the film 3 out of 4 stars, noting that the film avoids easy cliche in favour of a more thoughtful approach to the subject matter.
Yeah.
He gave particular praise to Clark Gregg, saying that whilst everyone is in doubt about his gender because of his physical appearance, in his heart he knows he is a woman, and he is true to that inner conviction with a courage that the film doesn't need to underline, because it permeates his whole performance.
Yeah, so Clark Gregg plays Sebastian Cole's father or mother.
Or stepfather or whatever it is, or stepmother or whatever,
and is a transgender woman. But again, like the previous movie, it doesn't make a joke about it, and it just treats it as it is what it is. And Sebastian Cole has a good relationship with his stepmother. So it is quite modern in that respect. Clark Gregg plays, he's the guy who plays in the Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's like the main.
Yes.
So he was probably the only actor that I recognised in the whole movie. But he does a really good job in this role. Yeah.
In Variety, Joe Layden believed that the scenes between Gregg and Grenier, who's the
Sebastian Cole,
Adrian Grenier, were the strongest. He felt Gregg's portrayal came a little bit too close to caricature, but he was critical of the technical aspects of the film and that the ending wasn't too great, apparently. But he predicted that the film would perform poorly with critics and at the box office. He was right about that. Owen Gleiberman, another writer from Entertainment Weekly, gave the film a B rating, saying that he wished it had been better structured. So
I don't agree too much with that. I think the clunkiest parts of this movie, I think it's a really good-looking movie in terms of cinematography. Right. The worst parts of this movie are the fight choreography. Having watched the Jackie Chan movie that you recommended the other week, Gorgeous, I did watch that with my son. The fight sequences are amazing.
Yes.
But this movie does have a fight sequence where the Clark Gregg's character stands up for his son and has a fight with somebody at a baseball game, I think. And that is choreographed so poorly. It is like the worst little fight that I've ever seen in a movie. There's also part of the story where Sebastian Cole moves to England with his mother.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's in the film for about 30 seconds, and they obviously didn't go to England. They didn't show any footage of an aeroplane taking off or anything like that. Suddenly they were just in a different apartment talking as if they were in England, and that was it. It was very weird.
It doesn't say what the budget for this movie is.
It must have been pretty low. But the movie did end with the Pixies' Where Is My Mind, the same as Fight Club. And I thought that was a pretty good ending. So
right.
So,
Yeah, there are very few factoids about this movie. Apparently the movie is featured in the Strokes music video for Hard to Explain.
Yeah, I watched that. And it just uses a couple of clips from it. It's not much.
I struggle to find very much at all in the way of there's a massive amount of stuff talked about the previous movie, but this particular movie, it really.
Well, this
it
was
really
more
struggles.
This was more like of a high school coming of age comedy.
Yeah. There's some suggestion that it's sort of like an intelligent American Pie sort of thing.
Exactly. And they talk about that. There's this whole meta thing in the movie where a bunch of the kids are talking about high school movies and how lame they are. And so
Right.
it's a bit self-referential in that sense.
Yeah. As I said, sad that I didn't get to watch it. My Google foo failed me. I just could not find much about this movie at all. So I apologise to our listeners who are probably fairly disappointed in my efforts, but I think that's fairly normal at this point.
You said it.
Yeah, well, you know. I mean, there's a lot of reviews from people as opposed to like critics that are quite positive about the movie.
Yeah.
And perhaps because they're a bit newer, these reviews, like more
I think the
today.
fact that the user reviews are much higher than the critic reviews suggests that it has become a bit of a cult classic movie.
There's a lot of people that are rating it 7 and 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
There's even one who rated it 10 out of 10, which was interesting. A 9 out of 10. Yeah. There's a few quite low ratings as well, but as I said, I did watch the trailer a few times, and it did seem like an interesting premise for the movie. The trailer seemed reasonably interesting, but I just struggled to find the actual movie itself.
I've sent you the link to the YouTube video. So
okay, cool. I'll give it a go. Yes, and yesterday I was a little bit busy with things happening.
Yeah, the movie is interesting the way that it begins because you sort of see this girl on a remote farm feeding the chickens, and you hear the sound of a car crash, and then Sebastian Cole appears covered in blood, and she looks after him, and he takes from his pocket a family photograph, and then it sort of flashes back in time to describe everything that led up to that car crash. So the car crash bookends the movie.
Oh, okay.
If you know what I mean. Yeah. And then the main body of the movie is just a retelling of the events leading up to it. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting. I got a few laughs out of it. And I think I would rate it reasonably well. I don't think it's a bad movie in any sense. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. As I said, there's a lot of very positive reviews on IMDb and on user reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people who said they've watched the movie many times, so they obviously really enjoy it. I have to say it's extremely expensive to get the DVD for this movie. I looked into getting the DVD, and the DVDs are like $40, $50 to get.
Right, secondhand or something, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So quite hard to get hold of. So,
yeah, I think the YouTube video might be a VHS rip. Which is
oh, okay, yeah. The VHSs are available of it. But, I don't have a VHS player anymore, so yeah.
Well, I think we'll need to leave it a short one for the Adventures of Sebastian Cole, but track it down on YouTube. It's an interesting movie, and like I said, it's a little bit reminiscent of Napoleon Dynamite. Not as extreme as Napoleon Dynamite in the comedy, but it did sort of remind me of that kind of teenage coming-of-age high school drama style movie. And I think now it might be time to cut live to this week's movie night for the rolling of the bingo ball, and we'll see which of the 4 remaining balls comes out, and we'll find out which movie we'll be talking about on next week's show. So over to you, future Jason. Yeah, we're rolling. So here we are at the movie night, and we're rolling the ball and mixing it up, which direction to mix. That's the way. Only 4 balls left, and the number is... What is that? 22. It is the 22. I said 22. Oh, well. The obscure movie on the list, it's called Cookie's Fortune. Have you heard of Cookie's Fortune? It's a Robert Altman movie.
Welcome to Holly Springs, Mississippi.
Nice out here today, isn't it?
A quiet little town.
Cookie, I thought I might make some catfish enchiladas.
No! Where nothing ever happens.
Joe Mai? Joe Mai?
But But when the town's nuttiest woman gets whacked,
There's blood everywhere, red, like the coral that the fishers have found.
Hold on just a minute.
discovering who'done it
What's going on?
They broke in the door and they got one of her guns.
She was shot.
is going to be murder.
Watch. Back up. Back out.
From acclaimed filmmaker Robert Altman.
I cleaned every one of them guns, so my prints must have been on all of them. Anybody see you clean them?
I did.
You did not.
Director of The Player, Shortcuts, and MASH.
Lester, who are all these people?
Glenn Close, Julianne Moore, Liv Tyler, Chris O'Donnell, Charles S. Dutton, and Academy Award winner Patricia Neal.
He's innocent.
And what makes you so sure of that?
Because I fished with him.
They're all about to discover
This paper here says that she almost died giving birth.
Well, that's impossible, because she's never even gotten any.
that where there's a will,
What will?
there's a way
I'm a fugitive from justice, so arrest me!
to get away with murder.
What are you eating? Nothing.
Cookie's Fortune.
Did you eat yet?
Yeah. Want some seconds?
A Robert Altman film.
And that has been paired with The World Is Not Enough. So it's your James Bond.
As the countdown begins to the 21st century, it's good to know there is still one number you can always count on.
Bond.
Bond.
Can't you just say hello like a normal person?
Renard is behind this. He will die, along with everyone in the city.
We do not negotiate with terrorists.
His only goal is chaos.
I sent 009 to kill Reynard. He put a bullet in his head. That bullet's still there.
He feels no pain. He can push himself harder, longer than any normal man.
No hard feelings, Mr. Bond.
It appears that you have been beaten.
Don't make this personal.
I can't do that.
I just can't help thinking I'm next.
New model?
The very latest in intercepts and countermeasures, and 6 beverage cup holders.
I've always tried to teach you 2 things. First, never let them see you bleed. And the second?
Always have an escape plan.
For the world's greatest secret agent,
You've defused hundreds of these, right?
when the stakes are high
Yeah, but they're usually standing still.
Life's full of small challenges.
and the danger hits too close to home,
He has M. By noon tomorrow, you'll feel nothing at all.
I thought it was your job to protect me.
it's not just professional,
Someone's tampered with the bomb!
it's personal.
I have to get it back, or somebody's gonna have my butt.
First things first. I'm gonna find him.
Who's afraid now, Mr. Bond?
I will not miss. I never miss.
Do you want to put that in English for those of us who don't speak spy?
Why am I suddenly worried I'm not carrying enough insurance?
Your time is up.
The world is not enough.
And there you go. 1 down, 3 to go. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody last night. We went to my son's karate wind-up, and I was talking to a guy who's a bit of a movie aficionado. He was talking about how his young daughter has now expressed an interest in movies, so he's been going through watching all the classic movies with her, you know, from the 80s and 90s. And I told him about this project, and he was quite fascinated. So he's going to go away and have a look at all the movies that we've been talking about as well. So,
Oh, cool. Yeah.
there you go.
Slowly getting an audience over time. Yeah, like a lot of people have found the idea quite interesting that I've spoken to. I spoke to people on the plane and stuff like that, and they were all quite, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been going okay, hasn't it? We reached another milestone during the week. I can't remember what it was. We got a badge for something or other. Number of downloads or something. You sort of cross these little... let me see. I can't find where it is. We've had 1,600 downloads. It's not too bad. But these stats are a bit off anyway, because it doesn't count any of the YouTube watchers. We get a lot of listens on YouTube.
There's a lot of listeners on YouTube, and I discovered that the Podbean one, like apparently it's extremely hard to count
because
podcast listens. Because it's spread all over the place.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is just a pod.
A lot of the people I know that listen to it actually listen to it on Spotify, and I think they have their own count. So, yeah I don't know. Yeah. So, anyway, there you go. But anyway,
right.
there's definitely a couple of hundred people or something listening to it at some point, so which is pretty decent, I thought. Anyway, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you to all of our listeners.
Yes, thanks, listeners. It's good to be on this ride with you. It's been fun for us having this little project, and we've got 3 more to go after this. So,
right, yeah. All right, and with that, I guess
let's cross now to Margaret and David with their review of Boys Don't Cry. And until next week, that's all from me. So it's goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
The true story of Teena Brandon, a.k.a. Brandon Teena, has been adapted to film fiction in the much-applauded Boys Don't Cry.
This first film from director Kimberly Peirce is riveting from the start. It smells of danger. All the performances are impressive and true, but it's no accident that Hilary Swank picked up a Golden Globe for her role. She's extraordinarily good. Be warned, though, some of the climactic scenes are very confronting. David.
The tragedy of Brandon Teena, of course, is that he's living in the Midwest, in this fairly godforsaken place instead of a big city.
But don't you think it's extraordinary that this is a first-time director, come out of nowhere, really, and she directs this film with such assurance?
Yeah. Oh, it's a totally accomplished film.
So what's your score for this?
I'm giving it 4.5.
So am I, David. We're agreeing finally.